This presentation of the Savage Nation is brought to you by Inheritance Funding Company. Fresh and original every day. Live and real. On the air, online, on demand. Armstrong and Getty. Weekday morning 6 to 10. Talk 910 KNEW.
Warning. The Michael Savage Show contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Here is Michael Savage.
A dark side. Most people rise above it, but some are consumed by it.
Michael?
Until there is nothing left but pure evil.
Behind these eyes, one finds only darkness. These are the eyes of a psychopath.
Rob Zombie unleashes an extreme vision of terror and reinvents a legend. Halloween.
Well, this is the Savage Nation. Now, that was a trailer from the movie Halloween done in 2007. Let me explain why I played it. First of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us, etc., and so on. There will be politics, I guarantee you. Maybe a recipe or two, whatever. But I don't watch horror movies. I hate them. I avoid them. If anyone's watching them in the house, I walk out of the room. I won't watch science fiction because the world is crazy enough as it is. I need stability. So therefore, I don't watch science fiction or horror. All I got to do is watch Obama give another speech about socialized medicine or a cap-and-trade bill, which is a scam of scams, the greatest American scam in history. I don't need a horror show. But anyway, last night, I drank too much coffee before the show, and I couldn't sleep. So I watched a lot of movies. One of them was a movie done in 2000 in Thailand, about a deaf mute who's an assassin. It was actually so well done, I watched the whole movie. It was too long, but it was great. Very compelling acting by two Hong Kong brothers. Watched that, went right into Halloween 2007. At that point, I was so whacked out on my, like a kid in the movie theater. So that was at midnight. I turned on Halloween, and I couldn't stop watching it. It was so horrible. A 10-year-old boy who kills his stepfather, his sister, the sister's boyfriend. They lock him up. 20 years later, he escapes from the madhouse. I turned it off at that point, and I couldn't sleep. I was so agitated from the horror movie, it was 2 in the morning, that I decided to read the biggest horror story I have yet to read this year, and it's about Goldman Sachs that was just published in Rolling Stone magazine. I had received it yesterday from a personal friend of mine, Craig Smith, he advertises on the show, Swiss American. He said, Michael, you have been trying to warn your listeners about Goldman Sachs running America, how they've owned the presidency for three different terms now, and no one believed you. And he said, now it's come out of Rolling Stone that everything that you've said is true. Now, I want to remind you that I was talking about Goldman Sachs 1 year before others in the media even heard of them. And the reason I was is because I knew that our past Treasury Secretary, Hank Paulson, Goldman Sachs. I knew that the previous architect of the screwing of the American people was Robert Rubin, Bill Clinton's former Treasury Secretary. He spent 26 years at Goldman Sachs before becoming chairman of Citigroup, which just got a $300 billion taxpayer bailout from Paulson. Do you understand how this works? Then there was John Thain, the chief of Merrill Lynch, who bought an $87,000 area rug for his office while the company was going down the tubes. He was a former banker for Goldman Sachs. You want me to go on? Robert Steele, the former Goldman head of Wachovia, received $225 million in golden parachute payments just as his bank was imploding. Then Josh Bolten, Bush's chief of staff during the bailout. Mark Patterson, the current Treasury chief of staff, who was a Goldman lobbyist just a year ago. And Ed Liddy, the former Goldman director, who Paulson put in charge of bailed out insurance giant AIG. It goes on and on. What I'm trying to tell you is that Goldman Sachs, according to this article, has engineered every major market manipulation since the Great Depression, and they're about to do it again. What's intriguing about the article is that this was written by a far-left writer who understands that cap and trade, which was just passed in the House, is perhaps the greatest scam in the history of the world. The carbon credit scam being promoted by the Democrat Party has nothing to do with stopping global warming. It is a carbon market worth $1 trillion a year, and the company that is going to handle it all, Goldman Sachs. Deeply enmeshed in it is the head of the crime syndicate, the Corleone Corleone crime syndicate, in my opinion, which is Al Corleone. And this goes to the point that I'm trying to make. The fact of the matter is global warming is the greatest scam of all the scams put together. And Barack Obama was picked by Goldman Sachs and the bankers to push forward the carbon credit cap and trade scam, according to this article. Now, you may not know this, but this global warming scam being pushed forward was pushed because lobbyists spent $3.5 million. That is, Goldman Sachs alone spent $3.5 million to lobby climate issues. I don't think you understand this. This is not about do-gooders. This is not about the environment. This is not about saving the planet Earth. This is not the polar bears. This is about making some of the most evil men on Earth, who are some of the richest men on Earth, richer yet. The article concludes by saying it's a gangster state running on gangster economics, and even prices can't be trusted anymore. There are hidden taxes in every dollar you pay, and the fact is you're going to pay it anyway. Now, I just heard that Barack Obama is going to go on vacation shortly to Martha's Vineyard. Now, you say, well, there's nothing wrong with that. No, but it ties right into the horror story I just told you about. I don't think you know it, but most of the major American bankers from Goldman Sachs and other firms all have houses on Martha's Vineyard. Every last one of them goes to Martha's Vineyard in the summer, and that's where their president, that's where their planted front man, Barack Obama, is going to learn from his handlers what he must do next to make certain that America continues to be fleeced like the sheep we are. And I want to talk about this if you do. If not, we'll go on to something else. I believe that Goldman Sachs, if there was an honest government, if there was a single honest official at the highest level, there would be a thorough and complete investigation of Goldman Sachs. Unfortunately, they have spent so much money buying politicians on both sides of the aisle that it's almost impossible to conceive that they will ever be investigated. You say, well, what do you have against bankers and banks? I have nothing against them. I myself have nothing against wealth if it's honestly earned. But if wealth is earned through fraud, if wealth is earned by manipulating markets, if wealth is earned by planting Treasury secretaries who steal it from the taxpayers to give it to their friends, then there is something very wrong with it. Let's look at Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary, Robert Rubin. He was on the cover of Time magazine in I remember seeing Robert Rubin, and I thought there was something wrong with the pictures I was seeing about Robert Rubin at the time, when there was one story after another about Robert Rubin, fly fisherman, Robert Rubin, nice man, Robert Rubin, Fleetwood Mac lover, Robert Rubin, the greatest person in the history of finance. But the fact of the matter is, he had a Treasury deputy at that time whose name was Larry Summers. And he picked a federal chief called Alan Greenspan. Do you know who Alan Greenspan is? Do you see how it's all intimately connected? Who was Alan Greenspan married to? None other than the most, the woman who most approximates the movie Halloween in television is his wife, Andrea Mitchell. She puts shudders through my spine. Andrea Mitchell, when she talks in that pseudo-sophisticated Upper East Side hag voice, makes me think of a slasher movie like Halloween. She makes me think of Ruth Madoff as a Girl Scout compared to Andrea Mitchell and Alan Greenspan. They're all one family. Don't you understand that? Now, how did this all happen? Wall Street was not always like this, by the way. Wall Street had been regulated. Ever since the Great Depression, for over 60 years, there were protections built in to prevent another blowout. What happened is that these devious gonifs rewrote the laws to permit themselves to produce fiduciary instruments that permitted them to trade absolute garbage for money, upon which they made billions of dollars, took the money out and left you holding the bag, and they robbed old people, they robbed children, they robbed charities, and they were left with, the charities, the old people and children were left with nothing, while these filthy, dirty pigs took billions of dollars out of their pockets. And don't think I'm making this up. You've got to read this article. I knew there was something wrong with the picture when I saw one Goldman Sachs CEO after another as Treasury Secretary. I knew something was wrong with the picture. But this article actually elucidates the people, what they did, what laws they rewrote, and how they did it. I want to read you one paragraph from the article.